What's up everyone, Kaiju no Kami here, and you're probably wondering why I'm on screen instead of my opening theme right now, like I do with the rest of my interviews. Well, it's because unfortunately things went awry with this interview. I don't know what happened. I guess my receiver to my microphone died halfway through because I've only got a half of our interview before the audio went out. So I'm going to show you what I do have for this interview, but I wanted to tell you a little bit about it. Gower and Ryan Lambert from the Monster Squad were at Denver Comic-Con 2018 promoting their new documentary, The Wolfman's Got Nards, which is a documentary on the Monster Squad. It was they were very fun. They invoked a lot of passion and energy in their interview that I wish I could show you it. Unfortunately, I recorded a Q&A session that came after they showed us the documentary during a panel. So I'm going to have that attached to this as well. So it will be the few minutes of the Q&A I have, or the interview I have with them, and then it will go to the Q&A session from that panel. It's just disappointing that I had a lot of issues over the weekend. I mean, one of my audio cables, or my main audio cable, this happened to. But getting to meet these guys, it was a real honor, a real treat to interview them. You can check them out on Twitter at the Squadcast. Well, I'm sorry, the Squadcast is their podcast. On Twitter, they're on there under the Squad Doc. They have a Patreon page that is Ryan and, spelled out, Andre. They were so fun to talk to, two great guys that really like what they're doing. They're really loving this new passion that the Monster Squad's receiving, that I wanted to share what I could with you guys, despite the interview pretty much being, well, in a way non-existent. So I hope you guys enjoy what you see, and I hope you enjoy the Q&A. Definitely check this documentary out. It was very fun. It has a lot of fans in the documentary talking about their experience with the movie, with their collections, for those that collect stuff. It was very different from your normal documentary, and one that's definitely worth owning, so check it out. Welcome, I'm the Kaiju no Kami here at Denver Comic-Con 2018. I've got a couple of cool people. I have Ryan Lambert and Andre Gower. Are you guys enjoying yourselves?
Yeah. So far it's been awesome. You know, it's just, today's Friday, so it's first day, and everybody's getting kind of warmed up, but there's already 1 million people here, and it's absolutely bonkers.
Yeah, this is a big one.
Yeah, it's a good show.
We've traveled around a bunch, you know, past couple of years, and this is maybe one of the biggest ones I've seen.
Anything specific you're looking forward to seeing at the convention?
Do we get to see anything?
That's tough.
I just like what, you know, we get to sit in our you know, behind our table. We kind of just get to people watch. So like, you know, we get to see everybody's costumes and things like that. So that's kind of fun.
Yeah, and you know, when you've got, you know, fans coming up and signing and taking photos, you know, all day long, it's tough to get out and leave and go see everybody else. But we've got a couple people actually I've never met before that I'd like to meet over in the celebrity area with us, so I'm looking forward to that. So there's a couple of Harry Potter people here, and which I will be meeting, and which I don't know because I'm a fan of the series, so of the movies. So it's right. What's not to like? Gryffindor.
So for people who might not know who you are, what have you done before?
Well, we're here mainly because Ryan and I were co-stars in a movie 30 years ago called The Monster Squad. And The Monster Squad's been enjoying for the last, you know, decade or so an awesome resurgence. And now that we're just coming into this kind of like nostalgia resurgence in the last couple years, it's getting even deeper and stronger. So that was Wolfman's Got Nards, a documentary. Thanks for coming. Does anybody have any questions or criticisms? We'll get Ryan up here too because he was a big part of this. Hi. No, come on, this is a Q&A. The Q stands for questions. Yes.
I'll go first. So, we were sitting here kind of like whispering, and I remember seeing this in the theater with my little sister. sister. I was 14, she was 7. I'm gobsmacked. I didn't know that that wasn't like the biggest movie ever. Like, and he said the same thing. He was like, I didn't know that that wasn't a huge movie. And I don't think I even had a friend who hadn't seen this movie. So I guess that means maybe I was one of those kids. But as an adult, like I'm really shocked at that.
It's an interesting dynamic to learn watching this movie, because if you saw it, you liked it, you thought it was just yours. It was everything to you. And to make this film and to tell those stories and actually tell the actual history of this movie bombed.
Yeah.
This movie disappeared. It bombed, it died, it got killed, it got buried, it was done. And then you guys brought it back to life in 2006.
I never thought it was dead.
In 2006, we kind of say is the kind of the resurrection of it and kind of the thing. Now, all through the 90s, there actually was folks like you were trading VHS tapes. You were bootlegging VHS tapes. There was a bootleg DVD off a Japanese Laserdisc that was going through the 90s and things like that that people would trade and collect. And the VHS, like an actual former video rental, like Sean Robert would collect. He has one from almost every country it was ever in. He's like missing 3. Those were trading for $100 on eBay in like 1998.
Yeah, we rented the beta.
Yeah.
So we could record it on the VHS.
Yeah. And so you're not the only one that didn't know. I mean, someone like Joe Lynch, who's now a big movie director, thought it was a big thing too, and it wasn't.
And I guess that would have been my question, was like, do you come across that a lot? Seeing people who are going, this was such a big part of my childhood and growing up. I can't believe that it didn't become popular with this, I guess, society. And
it just goes to show that kids don't give a shit about box office.
Well, I guess a comment first was, I love this movie. I've seen this movie way too many times. I was the one who introduced him to this movie when it came out to Blu-ray. And it's funny, I never watched the original Universal Monsters until after I had seen this movie. So this is what introduced me to Frankenstein, Dracula, and Rudy was my favorite character. He was like my hero. But how do you, from watching this love letter of just the history and everything, which kind of explained my entire childhood, so thank you. Now it makes me feel entirely old too, so I appreciate that. How do you feel now that there is such a resurgence? Do you feel like welcomed and not welcomed, but like so happy that people are just remembering you? Because Stephen King rules. I was right there with you every day.
You started answering, because at the very beginning we all had a different take on what was happening, for 2006, 7, 8, and it took us all a little bit to kind of realize what was actually happening. And then it took a few more years to realize that this is not going away. This is growing. And Ryan was, we were all sort of just kind of taken by surprise, for a while.
I don't want to use words like vindication or anything like that, but there is a sort of like, okay, good, yeah, because it deserves it. Fred deserves it. That's who.
Yes.
Fred and Shane deserve it, and the people. We were in it, and we worked, and we were actors, and I left. But when you create something, and it really comes from the heart, and then to see it just get smashed. And then, like Fred said, when it comes back, 20 years later or whatever, there is a feeling of like, all right, good. But it's hard to it's always been hard to sort of put my finger on exactly what it is for me. Because, there is a point in your life when you think, I've moved on from that. I didn't know that this existed for a long, long time, until 2006. But yeah, it was happening. It was happening and rolling, but I didn't know it was happening. I ignored it, and I moved on and was doing something else with my life. So to see it come back and have this sort of love, that's kind of cool.
Yeah, it was certainly an interesting, couple of years to figure out what was going on. I think my takeaway from it, someone asked me, actually, any Fangoria fans in here? Yeah. Fangoria is coming back, of course, so get your subscriptions. I still can't say subscription or prescription. It doesn't watch this one. It sucks. Phil Noble Jr., who used to run Birth Movies Death and now is the managing editor of the new Fangoria, hosted a screening of this doc at the Overlook Festival, where we won the audience award. And he asked me a question. He was like, I see all of these full circle and stories about people involved in this movie. But I didn't see yours, and I didn't see you as me. And of course, my producer Henry guffawed at the time because we fought constantly about taking me out of this doc as much as possible. I'm still in it way too much, I think. But as the filmmaker, I didn't want it to be like, oh, look at me and my doc. So it was really cognizant there. But Phil asked me that question, and I realized that not only have fans had a resurgence, they found it themselves, they all have a full circle. Mike Hill was a teenager when it played in the UK, and now he's making monsters in Oscar-winning movies with the guys that made our movies. That doesn't get more full circle. And he didn't realize that until we were doing his interview. That's documentary gold right there, And he goes, and Andre's in the room, and then like after we, he was like, wait, holy shit, this is amazing. So that's what I wanted to see, and that's what we got over this year. And Phil asked me that question of why my story, I didn't sit there and explain my story of it. And I had to take a minute because it was a pretty good question, damn it. And I said, you know what, Phil? That's my story. I made the doc to tell the story of everybody's story. Because I think the most important thing that I take away from it is that everybody else's stories, everybody knows them because they're not by themselves or just with their friend in their attic in their cul-de-sac watching their favorite movie. It's a large group of people that can get together and celebrate it. So I think that's what I take away from.
I love this documentary, just to be
thank
honest.
you.
Actually,
We've got one. Yes, something. We got one. We got one.
One Blu-ray sale?
Coming. Right there.
What was both your guys' favorite part of the movie?
About actual Monster Squad? Probably
Well, it's got to be within the end battle.
Yeah, that last scene where we're saving the world. That was an amazing production to actually do. I mean, it was night shoots, it was just facts, things were, wolves were blowing up in midair, and like wind machines were going, and Ryan's killing every monster in sight, and it was just bonkers. And so that was just a crazy thing to actually do as a professional actor and then see it on screen. So we always have pretty much the same answer. Shooting that last sequence for about 2 weeks on the back lot at Warner Brothers was the interesting thing.
Did you have, at the time it was actually getting ready to premiere, did anyone bring up a point of saying that, like, is this really a family movie with all this, like, cursing and violence? And did you feel like that might be a problem with the audience bringing their kids? Because when my father took me to see this movie, and my mother, when I told her about it, she was like, oh my God, you can't see those kind of movies. I thought it was awesome, he thought it was awesome, but my mother was like, no.
You are correct. Really, that's kind of, look, movies get made, and they are, especially pre-internet era or pre-social media, they are dependent on reviews and maybe Siskel and Ebert or word of mouth. And that's after they release. Prior to the release, they're completely dependent on their marketing campaign. And ours sucked. It was really bad. It was completely tone deaf to what the movie actually was. And Shane Black mentioned, he's like, our movie had some heart and some realness and some danger mixed with funny, and the marketing campaign was total camp. And so you make a movie that has curse words and we're shooting guns, he's smoking, he's drinking, that's a beer in the treehouse, like no one realizes. And you see this movie or the trailer for the movie, it's dark and scary, and no parents are going to take their 10 or 11-year-old to see it. They're like, I'm not taking my kid to see this. So there was a little too much for the 10 and 11-year-olds, and then the 14 and 15, the 15, 16-year-old kids with cars are not going to go see a kid's monster movie because they're looking at the marketing. They're going to go see The Lost Boys. And therefore, no one went to the movie. And if no one goes in an opening weekend, there's not a second weekend allowed. And if no one goes in the second weekend, there's damn sure not a third weekend. And that's why the movie died and tanked in the box office. And I always think it's interesting. I make the joke. I already said it once today. But, had marketing understood that little window, Stephen Mock thinks it was the rating, that kept people out of the theater, kept kids out of the theater. We made a tween movie. This was a tween movie. And had marketing known that that was a thing, because it wasn't 30 years ago, it is now, and marketed to that tween audience and said, this had a good trailer, our trailer was great, but it was scary. Good marketing campaign to explain what it was, I think more people would have gone and parents would have taken their kids and the older kids would have gone and experienced it. And we could have, then it would have been successful. And then we would have made Monster Squad 2. Hell, we made the first tween movie, we would have made like Monster Squad 11 Breaking Dawn. We got a few more minutes. Yeah.
You kind of touched on it, like in the thing about if it was ever remade. How would you guys feel if it was ever remade or rebooted now that we live in a time of remakes and reboots? And if it ever was, would you both do cameos in it?
So to answer the actual question here, they were remaking this movie. They started that in 2009. Rob Cohen, ironically, who made like The Mummy and the huge director, was a young producer on The Monster Squad. All of this DVD lore came out and he's like, oh, we're going to reboot this. And they went to script development, they started going into production, and who was making it was Rob Cohen and Michael Bay. It's the same way. We've said this story a million times. It's so much money.
Let's find the two worst directors.
That's right. And, well, no, not right. Their movies make billions of dollars. They're not that bad at directors for some, way, shape, or form. But it ended up not happening. It got delayed, and then Universal announced the Dark Universe. And so Platinum Dunes and Michael Bay's company said, oh, we're not going to make Monster Squad. Universal's doing this whole thing. They're doing Dracula, Mummy, Bride, Creature, Frank, and then they're going to mash them together Avenger style. So the remake died. And then the Dark Universe died. So now sequel time is where we're at, right? Or moving forward. So there have been discussions at different levels. There's some discussions at lower levels as well. And we've always kicked around great ideas. But I think remaking this movie doesn't work today because you can't make the same type of movie.
On the other hand, remaking it will introduce the concept, at least to a new audience, that
Certainly.
May want to go out to
And
look
so
at
will
the
the
original.
But would we be interested in doing it? It would depend on who's involved, what it's doing, and if it, if Shane and Fred were on board and it was something really rad, then I don't think we would be too hard to convince. The funny thing is I always say it's like there is a really, really good sequel story on someone's laptop. And it's really good, and it's the sequel that you need for the Monster Squad, for the original fan base. And it covers all the bases that that covered and that missed, and brings it and carries on and passes the torch. It's on my laptop, but it worked. Ryan knows the story, and it could be fun. So we'll see, and who knows, maybe something like a documentary that's celebrating how many people like this movie and why. Who knows? Those conversations have been asked at different levels, like I said. So would you go see it? Yeah. So thank you for coming to this. I got to wrap it up, but we'll stay out in the hallway, or they've got another panel in here. Otherwise, Ryan and I will talk for hours about stuff. It doesn't even have to be Monster Squad, but I'll be out in the hallway if you want to ask more questions about the doc. But thank you for coming. This is the first convention audience that has seen this. We've only been in a handful of festivals, and it's doing really well. So if you see it, please support it. Follow at the Squad Doc. That's the documentary's social handle. So there's some behind-the-scenes photos and updates and what festival's going to be in. We're going to be in a good festival run all the way at least through November, maybe into December. I'm going to try to bring the doc back to Denver at maybe Denver Film Society or the Alamo Draft House again, either Littleton or Southlake. So please keep your eyes open. Follow at Squad Doc. Follow at Ryan Lambert 111 on all the socials, and follow me, and we'll hang out and trade pictures and kill monsters.
We'll be here tomorrow too.
And we'll be here tomorrow at our table. So if you have other questions that you forget tonight, come say hi. Oh, and shameless plug, Ryan and I, we do have a podcast, and it's called Squadcast. With Ryan and Andre, why not? Squadcast with Ryan and Andre, it's free. You can listen to it on ryanandandre.com. However, we just
started a Patreon page. So you can go to patreon.com/Ryan and Andre and sign up for it. It's like just exclusive content. I write a blog called Kill Ryan. What else?
And, well, we do the podcast there, but now we do it on camera. So the podcast is actually a show now, and it's just conversation. We hang out, and there may be whiskey there. I don't know. But we'll get out of this room. We'll go talking more. Thank you for watching Wolfman's Got Nards.